Okay, so here we are again. And prime matter, again, briefly last time, we just said that it's a real principle of being and becoming. Okay, it's that out of which things are and become. In Aristotle's mind, matter really has to be completely indeterminate and be pure potency. Okay, and this is a quote: "By matter, I mean that which in itself is neither a particular thing, nor of a certain quantity, nor assigned to any of the other categories by which being is determined." This is a reference to his book on the categories. Okay, so it has really absolutely no determination whatsoever. It doesn't have any quantity, location, color. This, physical property. It's not tangible. It's not sensible, perceptible, and so forth. Okay, and that's in metaphysics. Another definition that he gives, I think this is in the physics, the prime matter is the primary substratum of each thing, from which the thing comes to be without qualification, and which persists in the results. Okay, the comes to be without qualification. I want to sort of highlight this just because it's a different way of doing. So coming to be is, whoops, I don't know why. Right, comes to be without qualification, meaning comes to be as such. The word without qualification comes back, over and over again in the philosophy of nature. When you read Aristotle or when you read Aquinas, coming to be without qualification, it means coming to be, coming to be into existence, right? Without qualification, meaning without any determination as such. I mean, it means irrespective of the determination. For example, when the embryo of the chicken comes to be from the meeting of the egg and sperm, that's when you have the coming to be without qualification of the chicken, if you will, or of the embryo. When the armadillo dies and you have the carcass that comes to be, okay, that's the coming to be of a carcass without qualification. Okay, so it just means substantial change, essentially. Okay, the coming to be without qualification is the substantial change. When the ashes come to be from lightning striking the tree, okay, that's the ashes coming to be, that's coming to be without qualification, meaning irrespective of whether the ashes are cold or hot or here or there. Okay, so matter, primary matter, is the primary substratum of each thing from which the thing comes to be without qualification, and which persists in the result. Okay, because if you remember when I had the diagram of the structure of substantial change, you have prime matter that persists in the change, but you go from privation of the form to acquisition of the new form, right? So privation of the form is also a principle of the change, but it doesn't persist through the result. It doesn't persist in the result, because privation goes away and you have acquisition of the new form, whereas matter persists through the change. Okay, so I'm just rehashing, introducing just some new vocabulary, new ways of mentioning stuff that was mentioned before. Now, prime matter is neither generated nor corrupted. Okay, there's nothing that makes prime matter. There's not a source of prime matter in the world. Okay, there's nothing that makes prime matter, and prime matter doesn't go out of existence. Okay, so prime matter is neither generated nor corrupted. Again, I want to clarify the meaning of these terms. Generation in the philosophy of nature, that's an important term, is really coming to be. Okay, coming to be from something else. Okay, generation is coming to be from something else, and corruption, it's not the same meaning as we use. Now, the corruption. I mean, in a way, when we say that a politician is corrupted, okay, somebody was corrupted, that means he's become vile. But what it means, in a way, it has the meaning in the sense that the politician has ceased to be the upstanding citizen that he was supposed to be. Politicians are supposed to be our noble leaders and whatnot. And when they take the bribe, they become corrupted and they cease to be what they are. So corruption in the philosophy of nature is really the ceasing to be. right? And the becoming something else. Okay, so the corruption. So when you have the corruption of the armadillo into a carcass, right? The armadillo ceases to be, right? The armadillo is corrupted. It's no longer armadillo. It becomes a carcass. Okay, but generation is the coming to be. Okay, coming to be and ceasing to be are generation and corruption. So these have very specific terms. And I want to highlight, just because generation is different from creation, right? So creation, which is used very little in the philosophy of nature, but creation is when something comes ex nihilo, if you will, out of nothing. Okay? So creation would be something coming out of nothing. In the philosophy of nature, everything that we seem to observe seems to be either generated or corrupted. All the comings to be and ceasing to be are always from something else. Okay? Now, prime matter itself is neither generated nor corrupted. Okay? Because really, generation and corruption refers to things, perceptible things, okay? Things that already exist, okay? This is a quote from Aquinas. It's a little bit of a long quote, but essentially he says, in every instance of generation, there must be something that is made and something out of which it is made. If therefore that out of which it is made were itself also generated, it would have to be generated in turn out of something else, right? Right? And either one can proceed to infinity in this process of postulating material principles, or one can allow that there's some first material principle which itself is not generated. Okay? Right? But if there were really an infinity of material principles, the process of generation could never be completed, since infinity cannot be crossed. Okay? So it's an argument that prime matter itself cannot be generated because there'd be an infinite regress. Okay? So either it is necessary to posit some ungenerated material principle, or else it is impossible that there be any generation at all. Okay? So that's the logical way of determining that prime matter is never generated, in addition to the empirical way, which is just to observe nature around us and to see that always change seems to be changing from one thing to another. Okay, that there's this conservation of matter, essentially, right? Or conservation of stuff. Okay, so prime matter is neither generated nor corrupted, but prime matter is the principle of corruption. Okay, because again, for something to be corruptible and to become something else, right, it has to have potency, and prime matter is, matter is the principle of potency, and prime matter is pure potency. It has the radical capacity for receiving all forms, as we will see later on. Okay, so it's really the principle of corruption, right? If something is not material, then it is incorruptible. It cannot become anything else. Okay, so prime matter is the principle of corruption, but in itself, it is neither generated nor corrupted. So I think right now I just want to give a little bit of a sense of what the real world, at least the real physical world, the sensible world around us, the perceptible world, is according to Aristotle. Okay, so for Aristotle, we see that every existing thing, and these things that change into one another, right? The water, the cow drinking the water, so the water in a way becoming part of the cow dying, becoming food for the plants growing, other cows eating the plants, human beings, all that stuff that's sort of mixing and interchanging and changing into one another, and all that stuff is pervaded by a material principle that itself is neither generated nor corrupted. Okay, prime matter pervades the changing world and explains the changes and interchanges within it. Okay, prime matter itself does not change. It is not generated nor corrupted. Okay, so, and matter, prime matter, is actually not a principle of being where change does not take place. And here I want to highlight that. We're not going to go into it. We're not going to go into the cosmology of Aristotle, but Aristotle viewed the heavenly spheres, right, the planets and the stars, because he was under the wrong impression. There was an error of what do you call it? I mean, an induction error, if you will. I mean, he thought that the movement of the stars was perfectly spherical. Okay, and when we talk about motion, we see that this a circular motion in Aristotle was a special kind of motion that it had no beginning and no end, and therefore was sort of an eternal motion, okay, and completely unchanging. So Aristotle viewed the heavenly spheres, right, and all the bodies and all the stars around the world as being unchanging, and it was a realm of no change at all, and therefore matter was not a principle in the heavenly bodies, and he used the term ether to actually indicate what was operating in this unchanging world of the eternal spheres around the earth. Okay, so that's something that perhaps can also help us understand what matter is. So matter really is a principle of being and becoming in the physical sense here on earth right now. And for Aristotle, it was here on earth. We know that it was an error, on his part, and so matter is also going to be a principle of being for us now. Understanding that there is actual change out there in the heavenly spheres, that they do change, that their motion is not completely circular, and so forth and whatnot. So matter is a principle of being there, but essentially, I just want to highlight that it's a matter of principle, so long as we're talking about things that are changing. Okay. And that's the next to last segment on prime matter. In the next segment on prime matter, I will talk about the relationship between prime matter and quantity. Okay, because actually I don't want to give a false impression here, and we'll talk about that next time, that matter, even though it pervades, the entire physical world around us, it does not have a dimension. It's not like matter itself has any kind of quantity. Okay, but it's a principle of being that is operative in nature. Okay, any questions here before we have our last segment?
No, I don't think any questions.
Okay, thanks, Michael.